From time to time, you might need to add some text or type to a particular image, especially if you're mocking something up like a website or a postcard or something, you want to add some textual content. To do that, let's select the text tool by pressing the letter T on the keyboard. And there's actually two different types of text that you can create in Photoshop. There's something called point text and then something called area text. I'm going to show you point text in this particular video. To do point text, you just simply click where you want your text to begin in your image, and that puts a cursor on a separate layer. You'll notice that the layers panel now shows you layer 1 with the T icon showing you the text layer there. So let's just start typing. We'll type Photoshop loves me. And if I wanted the next part of the sentence to go to the next line, the difference with PointType is that you don't actually get word wrap. Like if I just keep typing, it's going to keep going forever and ever and ever as long as I keep typing. I'm going to undo that, Command Z. Now I don't want to have to undo every single character, so if I just want to start over, here's your first type tip. Just press the Escape key, and that makes that text edit like it never happened. Escape is just the same thing as hitting cancel. So let's click again and start typing Photoshop loves me, comma, and if I want the next word to go to the next line, then you hit a manual return key on your keyboard there. Photoshop loves me not. Okay. Now to apply this text, we learned that hitting escape cancels you. To actually apply it, you would hit your enter key. Now take a look at your keyboard, not the return key or the enter key that's on the main keyboard, but the enter key that is to the far right of a normal keyboard if you have a numeric keypad, or if you're using a laptop, find the separate enter key that your keyboard might have there. Okay, so a difference between return and enter. Return gives you a line break, enter applies your text edit. Now I have my text tool still chosen, and if I want to re-edit this text, I can simply take the text tool and double click right on the word that I want to edit, and it goes ahead and dives into that text layer and selects that text. I'm going to go ahead and hit the escape key to cancel that. If I'm not in the type tool, I'm in the move tool, for instance, another way to quickly jump to the particular text layer that you want to edit and select and switch to the type tool all in one motion is to simply double click on the T thumbnail in the layers panel. Before we do that, you'll notice that the name of the layer has now been changed to the first few words of the actual type layer itself. To switch to that type layer, I'm going to go ahead and double click on the T. You'll notice that it switched me from the move tool into the type tool and selected all that text. If I just want to change one word, I can just double click on the one word and highlight just that one word. I'm going to hit the escape key to go back out and deselect that text, and it takes me back to the move tool, which brings up another point. If I'm in the middle of editing, let's switch to our type tool again. I'll press the letter T. I'll double click on the word loves here. If I want to switch the position of this text and move it around the page while I'm in the middle of editing it though, how do I do that? Just move your mouse outside the text, and you'll see your cursor changes from the I-beam when you're in the text to the move cursor when you're outside the text. So you can just simply click and drag to move that, even though you're technically in the middle of the type tool. So just move away from the text, and then you can move the actual text as well. When you move your cursor back into the text, it changes back to the I-beam so you can continue selecting and editing the text directly. All right, I'm going to hit the escape key to get back to the move tool and cancel that edit. If all I want to do is change things like font and style and size, I can do that without actually having any character selected. I can make the change to the entire layer just by having that type tool active and the layer that I want to edit selected in the layers panel. Now type size, you may not always know what point size you want. You can experiment with the font menu up here, the type size menu. If I click on the drop down, it goes from 6 points to 72 points, and I can choose it there. If I want sizes other than 72 or 6, between that range, what I recommend is two different techniques. Put your mouse on the actual label of the text size, and that gives you the scrubby slider, which you can then move left and right to change the size that way. Right makes it bigger, click and drag to the left to make it smaller. It's kind of a cool technique. I don't actually call it my favorite because you'll notice that you don't actually see it update to the new size until you let go of the mouse. So the method I prefer, and you can do it whether you're in the text tool or the move tool, doesn't matter, is to go to the free transform mode, Command or Control T. That puts a bounding box around your type layer, and then I can click on a corner handle, hold down the Shift key, and then just get a real size preview of how big that text is going to be as I scale it. Now the good news is that it's still vector text when I go ahead and hit the Enter key to apply that transformation. you'll see that Photoshop updates point size of that type layer when I have the type tool selected. You can see it's now 132.64. So scaling is non-destructive. It doesn't convert it to pixels or damage the text in any way. I just find that a much more fluid way of getting the type exactly the size I want it. Now, what about changing the font? Yes, you have a font menu here, and you can click on that and see this big long list of fonts and experiment that way. I have another technique to experiment with fonts as well. When you don't know the name of the font you're looking for, or you don't even care, you're just kind of experimenting, with the type tool active, which you have right now, and the type layer that you want to edit active, just press the return key. So I don't have a cursor, right? There's no blinking cursor inside my text layer. I just have the type layer selected and the type tool active. When you hit the return key, look what happened in the upper left-hand corner. It highlighted the font field. Now that's interesting for two reasons. One, you can use your up and down arrow keys on your keyboard to move to the next font in the list. And you'll see as I do this, it actually updates the text in the layer to show you the new font. So it's a great way just to quickly cycle through all the different typefaces you have installed to see which font you want to use. If you want to go to the previous font, you use your up arrow. So that's kind of handy. So a nice, easy way to just quickly cycle through all the different typefaces that you have available to you. Now, if you happen to know the name of a specific font you want, because that font field is still selected, you can actually type the first few characters of the particular font you're looking for. So if I type I, it jumps to impact. If this is the font I want to use, notice it hasn't updated the text yet. I have to apply that by hitting the return key again. And then that locks in that new font change. So how do you get your focus back in that field again, the font field? I have the type tool active, that's key. Hit the return key, it puts you right back into that font field. If I type rock, R-O-C-K, it gives me Rockwell. If I want to apply that, hit the return key, and now I'm back in that particular font. So some nice, easy ways to change the scale of the font and to actually change the typeface that you're using as well. And then if there are additional character level edits that you want to make, you'll want to open up the character panel or the paragraph panels. There's a button in the options bar for you to do that as well. I have my type tool chosen. I have a type layer selected in the layers panel. This little button right here in the options bar will open up your character and paragraph panels if they're not already open on your screen. And you can see, just like in InDesign and Illustrator, you've got a ton of different formatting options available to you. So things like tracking and kerning and letting the space between lines, tracking and kerning the space between individual characters or a range of text, and then some additional font characteristics like italic, uppercase, small caps, baseline shift, and so forth. So there's your kind of broad overview of working with the type tool, making it easier to select, move, format, and scale text once you've got it created. And then your secret options for additional type formatting in your character and paragraph panels. By default, when you click the character and paragraph button, it actually opens up those panels in this dock icon mode here. And then once they're there, you can just click on the actual icon itself to reopen and collapse those particular panels.